Good morning, students. Welcome to the second class on poetry. In the first class, we have discussed what poetry is and what poetry is not. In today's class, we will discuss the various elements found in poetry, the sound elements, the figurative language used, forms of poetry, and so on. Apart from these sound elements, there are other devices used by the poets, and they are collectively called as poetic devices. There are poetic devices based on the sounds of words, based on the meaning of words, and also there are devices which are based on arrangements of the words. These devices help in creating strong expressions which appeal the readers. Let's see the poetic devices based on the sounds of words. Sounds of words create a magical effect in reader's mind. When words are clustered together, they create a specific effect when the reader hears it. These sounds can hit readers in various ways. They can bring various emotions like anger, happiness, love, hate, or dislike. Let's see a few poetic devices based on sounds. The first one is alliteration. In literary works, we find alliteration. It can be defined as the noticeable repetition of the same first consonant sounds in close syllables within a group of words. For example, fast and furious. The first sound is repeated in fast and the word furious. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. See how the per sound, the consonant per, is repeated quite a number of times. So these are a few examples. There are numerous examples we can find in the poems that we learn. Alliteration helps the reader to focus on a particular section in the text and creates a rhythm and mood and may represent a specific connotation as well. Similarly, we have assonance, which is the repetition of vowel sound in words that are together or near each other in a sentence or a line in the poem. You'll find assonance in sounds that are accented or stressed in a line. For example, that solitude which suits the abstruser musings. Here the oo sound, solitude, and suits musings. The oo sound is repeated 4 times in this line. Similarly, let's see another example where a diphthong is repeated. On a proud round cloud in white high night. So in the first part we find the old diphthong repeated thrice, and the last 3 words white high night I diphthong is repeated thrice. It is the repetition of vowel sounds. And this also gives a musical quality to the poem. Next one is consonants. It's also like assonance, but here the consonants are near or together and are repetitive. For example, boats into the past. It's not in the beginning, but towards end. Cool soul. The l sound repeats. He struck a streak of bad luck. The curse sound that comes at the end of the words struck, streak, luck. It's repeated. So that's another example of consonants. Somewhat similar to assonance, where the vowel sound is repeated. But in consonants, it's the consonant sound that is repeated. Is it clear? Then we have cacophony and euphony. Cacophony is an unmusical series of unpleasant sounds which helps to convey some sort of disorder. I detest war because cause of war is always trivial. So here
we find the words, these because and cause. It gives some sort of it helps us to understand the disorderly situation or the cacophony in the situation. The words are used in such a way to create a discordant situation. This creates an image of unpleasantness in the minds of the readers, and the writer, and brings in this the effect of cacophony using these words. But on the other hand, euphony is a device that uses words or phrases that are used to bring a melodious sound effect. And it is derived from the Greek word euphonos, which means a sweet voiced. Euphony gives a very pleasing effect to the reader due to the repetition of certain vowels or smooth consonants. Writers use this device with other poetic devices like assonance, rhyme, alliteration to bring pleasing and soothing effects. For example, in these lines, season of mist and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun. Another line, success is counted sweetest by those who never succeed. All these poems, we find a musical quality because of the word, based on how the words are used. Euphony brings a very peaceful and pleasant feel in literary works, especially in poems. It helps in conveying messages to the audience very effectively. Next one is a rhyme. It is the repetition of words having the same sound at the end of a line in poems. It brings musicality to the poems. Rhyme differentiates poems from prose and gives a very pleasing effect. It makes poems more enjoyable and fun. For example, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. Now see how the last words, they rhyme together, wall and fall. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go, snow and go. How they rhyme together, rhyme with each other. So, rhyme also gives a musical quality to the poem. Let's see certain devices based on the meaning of words. Poet uses words which used in with the other words depict a particular thought, and some significant words carry layers of meaning, and for that the poet uses allegory, allusion, irony, and so on. So these are also poetic devices which are also called as figures of speech. Allegory is a poetic device in which abstract ideas are portrayed through characters, events, and figures. It's an extended metaphor. A writer can employ this in prose and also in poetry to tell a story to the audience. This helps in explaining the idea on which the poem is based. Often the objective is to teach a moral lesson. For example, John Bunyan's The Pilgrim's Progress, The Faerie Queene by Edmund Spenser, they're all major allegorical works in English literature. Allusion, on the other hand, is an indirect reference to a place or a person or an idea of political, historical, or cultural significance. It is usually a brief reference which does not describe the person or thing in a detailed manner. It's more like a passing comment. The writer, while using allusion, expects the reader to understand it with the knowledge that he already has. For example, don't act like a Romeo in front of her. So here in the sentence, actually Romeo is a reference to Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet, where Romeo is a passionate lover. Another example is, this place is like a garden of Eden. The reference is to the book of Genesis in Bible, where God, where God, about the garden that God has created for Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden. So these are examples of allusion. Next, we have irony. This poetic device depicts a contradictory situation. It refers to a situation that ends up in a very different way than expected. It describes the difference between reality and experience and appearance. Example: water, water everywhere, and all the boats returning. Water, water everywhere, nor any drop to drink. So, in this stanza, we find, it's a contradictory idea that is presented. There is water everywhere, but there is not a single drop to drink. Irony brings added meanings to a situation or in a poem. It helps in developing readers' interest and makes the poem more intriguing. It also compels the reader to use imagination to seek the hidden meaning in the lines. Next is a very interesting thing, that is metaphor, a comparison between two unlike things. It shows the resemblance between two completely different things. Here, the comparison is direct and not hidden. And unlike a simile, here we do not use words like or as for comparison. You say that one thing is the other. You don't use words like the other. For example, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. It's a direct metaphor from Shakespeare's play. So the world is actually compared to a stage, but the poet doesn't say that the world is like a stage, but instead Shakespeare says all the world is a stage. The world is a stage. So that is the difference. And there are implied metaphors also. They use words that suggest the nature of comparison. For example, hope, the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Here, hope is compared to a bird which is perched on the branches of our soul, but it's a indirect metaphor, or it's an implied metaphor. It's not, the poet doesn't say that hope is a bird, but says hope, the thing with feathers that perches in the soul. It's an implied metaphor. And coming to simile, here it shows the similarity between two opposite things like metaphor, but the poet uses words like or as to draw the comparison. For example, oh, my love's like a red, red rose that's newly sprung in June. Oh, my love's like the melody that's sweetly played in tune. So, here the words, the comparison, love is compared to a red, red rose, and the word like is also there. A simile is a figure of speech that makes a comparison showing similarities between two different things using words like or as. Unlike a metaphor, a simile draws resemblance with the help of these words, and it's a direct comparison. The next one is oxymoron. Two contradictory ideas are put together side by side or in a sentence to create a specific effect. For example, open secret, found missing, only choice. Two opposite things are brought together. Deafening silence, living dead. These are all examples of oxymoron. For example, let's see this poem. Why then, oh brawling love, oh loving hate, oh anything of nothing, first create, oh heavy lightness, serious vanity, misshapen chaos of well-seeming forms, feather of lead, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, still waking sleep, That is not what it is. This love feels that feel no love in this. Dost thou not love? So in these lines, we find contradictory words being put together like loving hate, bright smoke, cold fire, sick health, waking sleep. These are all opposite things which are brought together. We can easily find many oxymorons in daily speech as well. Another poetic device is personification, in which an animal, idea, or thing is given human characteristics. The non human object is depicted like humans. Human attributes are given to inanimate things. For example, when well apparelled April on the heel of limping winter treads, here the month April is given human attributes, somebody who is well dressed. So these figures of speech are tools that poets use to create certain images or pictures in the minds of the readers, and they are collectively known as imagery. These metaphors, similes, and all those things, they're collectively known as imagery, and this imagery is broadly classified into 5 heads like visual imagery, auditory, gustatory, olfactory, and tactile imagery. We'll deal with that in another class in detail, how it pertains to our senses. The last division is based on the arrangement of words, where we have verse. In this kind of poetic device, words are arranged by the poet in such a way that it gives a specific meaning to the poem and make it appealing. And these arrangements are arbitrary and sometimes mechanical. And let's see how it is done. For example, verse, which denotes a single line of a poem in general. This term is used for a stanza or a specific part of poetry. And there are 2 types of verse. One is free verse and the other one is blank verse. In free verse, there is no set meter and no rhyme scheme is maintained. Also, the poem doesn't have a set pattern. Often poets use this to hide their fluctuation of thoughts. For example, Eliot's Wasteland, which is in free verse. On the other hand, there is blank verse, which follows you won't find a particular rhyme scheme, but it follows iambic pentameter. Poet uses iambic pentameter to showcase larger than life events, and this creates a deep impact on the audience. It's unrhymed iambic pentameter blank verse. And coming to rhyme scheme, there are different patterns of rhymes that we can find in poems. It is a structure of words used by poets to give rhyming effects. There are several types of rhyme schemes like alternate rhyme, ballad, monorhyme, couplet, triplet, enclosed rhyme, terza rima, limerick, villanelle, and so on. For example, in the nursery rhyme, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Here the rhyme scheme is AABB. The last words in the first 2 lines, they rhyme each other, and the last words in the 3rd and 4th lines, they rhyme each other. So it is AABB. So there are different patterns of rhyme schemes that we find in poems, ABA, ABA, AB, AB, BC, BC, and so on. So we'll have another class on rhyme scheme also.
Alright, we have seen various elements in poetry, the sound elements, rhythm, rhyme, stanzas, and many other things. So I hope you have got a very clear picture on all these things. And if you have any doubts, you can post it in Google Classroom or in the comment box below. Have a nice day and see you in the next class on forms of poetry. Bye.